Well, thank you so much for your time today, Brandon. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I watched the film last night, and that was it was something good to watch before I went to bed. To be honest with you,
Excellent.
that was
I'm glad we could put you to sleep.
yeah, absolutely. I loved it. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, and there's lots of things I'd like to ask you. But I just wanted to ask you, just to begin with, kind of how this evolved for you, because I know you probably had an idea, and it's been 8 years since your last one. So was there a reason why it took you so long to make this one, or was it a case of you were kind of refining the idea before you put it onto screen?
To be honest, it's just how long the film took to get made. I was working on it the entire time, but it was a combination of a couple of things. Antiviral, first of all, was my first film. I didn't have a film career back then, really. I had done a few shorts, but so it's not like I had a bunch of irons in the fire and other films in development. So when that film was finished, I sort of had to start from scratch, write a new film from scratch and develop it from scratch. So that added some time. And then it's just the normal independent film stuff. Sometimes it comes together quickly. Sometimes it's a slow and agonizing process. It's just sort of what you're dealing with as an indie filmmaker. In this case, it was a very long process, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Did it take, I can imagine the pitch for it is kind of surreal in some respects, but did you kind of pitch it to the right people, and that they would, if you'd have pitched this to Disney, for example, not that you would do that, but you know what I mean? You pitched it to the people and they were kind of receptive to the idea.
Yeah. I mean, well, so I made it in part with people that I knew on the producing end, anyways. Rhombus Media, who did Antiviral, and Rook Films, Andy Stark at Rook Films, were all people that I knew and were friendly with beforehand. So it wasn't hard to get it to the point where I had producers on and we were bringing it out, because I could have a conversation with them. It was more just a process of getting it financed, getting into bed with the wrong financier, burning some time at that point, that way, and then having to rework the structure and so on. That, again, it's normal independent film stuff. Sometimes takes a long time, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. Did this stem from things that you're interested in? The kind of things that you talk about in the movie and the things that the company is able to do. Is this something that's obviously it's not a real world thing yet, but is this something you think about? Is that why the idea kind of came to you?
Certainly. I mean, the idea came from kind of a more trivial personal place initially, which was just that I was going through a strange period where a lot was in flux, and I was finding it hard to see myself in my own life in a certain way. And I was waking up in the morning feeling as though I were sitting up into someone else's life and having to scramble to construct a character and who could function in that context. So I wanted initially to make a film about someone who may or may not be an imposter in their own life. And the seed of the film was really in those kinds of quieter, dramatic scenes with the thriller elements and the sci-fi horror elements building out from that. But there were also, of course, satirical elements that are very much in line with my interests. The Snowden leaks happened while I was writing, and so the issues of surveillance in the film, not just the sort of jokey scenes where in the Zuthru building people are looking through webcams and determining who's putting up what blinds, violating their privacy in a serious way for this mundane reason. But also I was looking at body possession partly as a metaphor for that kind of surveillance. Instead of someone turning on your webcam or your microphone, they're actually inside your body experiencing the most intimate details of your life through your nerve endings, or equally terrifying, they are in the body of someone close to you and you don't realize it, and you're having this intimate life with someone who is actually a kind of organic camera who's recording everything, and so on.
I mean, I was actually going to mention to you about the kind of the way the world has gone, obviously with Snowden and everything else. I mean, when you started planning this, did that change a lot of what you were trying to do in terms of, obviously, as you say, the Snowden leaks happened, and then a lot of other stuff's happened since. Did that kind of change your narrative, or did it just kind of push your idea even further in the sense that it justified what you were trying to do?
Yeah, I think it gave me more material as I was developing it, but the core idea was essentially the same. As I say, as I was working on it, I kind of started enjoying the thrillery side of it, the assassin stuff, and that became kind of the structure that held everything else together. But those ideas were there from the start, and then in a sense they were being justified as I was writing.
It's funny, it's going to sound like such a silly thing to say, but as a kid of the 80s, I've always remember those body swap comedies, you know, that there was ones with Dudley Moore and all those kind of things. So I really like that kind of that idea. But your idea is such a great kind of, it brings it into 21st century, because this is something that people do think about. It's think about, you know, as you say, when you wake up and you have, whether it's mental health issues or something going on, that you feel alien inside your body. I mean, I'm not saying that they were an influence, but was that something that you watched as a kid and thought that idea kind of, you know, fragmented in your head somewhat, or was it just something that I'm just being a silly 80s kid and just thinking, oh yeah, those crazy body swap horrors we used to get in that were made for kids?
For sure. I mean, we all saw them. I also grew up in the 80s. I can't say that those consciously influenced me, but I also don't usually target specific films, at least during the writing stage. I try to not deliberately draw from film. I try to draw more from life, because I think there's a danger to a certain degree as a filmmaker, at least when you're writing in only looking at the cinematic world. You know, you can end up making movies that are kind of about movies. But all of that's obviously in my head. I mean, when all of those body swap comedies have literally shaped your neural connections, and that's your brain. So who knows, really.
I just wanted to, as a final question, your casting is fantastic. I mean, Jennifer Jason Leigh and Sean Bean are there, and Tuppence Middleton. But I wanted to ask you about Christopher and Andrea, and whether they were people that you'd seen and admired and wanted to have them in the movie, or whether it was a kind of a process and you kind of set upon them through, you know, casting and all that kind of stuff.
I had seen both of them, and I was desperate to work with both of them. I mean, they're such incredible actors. The thing that, I can't overstate how good they are, and they ended up being also fantastic to work with, which was a really pleasant surprise, because you can love someone's work and then it can turn out that they're incredibly difficult as people, but neither of them were. They were both fantastic collaborators and injected so much additional life into the characters, and really surprised me.
And as a final question, how excited are you to be part of the London Film Festival? Because London Film Festival is so great at bringing in films from all over the world, but also from various different genres. It's not just about, you know, the prestige pictures, if you like. How excited are you for kind of UK audiences to see this? And do you think they'll embrace the story, or at least you hope that they embrace the story? I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited to be playing in London, and I hope that UK audiences embrace it, because I think UK audiences have great taste in sci-fi. You guys have a very long tradition of very smart science fiction, and so if you like this, I will take that as a great badge of honor. If you hate it, I will just cry myself to sleep.
I think the badge of honor in London is showing it at the Prince Charles. I think that's the big, be able to do that. That's the cinema that everyone seems to, for these kind of movies, seems to go down. If you charm that audience, I think you're on steady street, I think. Brandon, thank you so much for your time. Absolute pleasure. I love the film, and good luck with it. I hope it goes well for you. Thanks, man.
Thanks so much. Great talking to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys.
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey!